The Simpsons predictive programming. If you're not aware of The Simpsons, I'm sure you are, because it's the longest running show on TV. It's an animated show which consists of a typical American family. So you have the father, Homer Simpson, the mother, Marge Simpson, then you've got the son, Bart, and the two daughters, Lisa and Maggie. So Homer is the typical patriarch of the American family household. He's the one who goes to work. He's the one who provides money for the family. He's the one who's financially responsible, albeit with help from his wife. He works at the nuclear power plant. And I've noticed a lot of things in shows about nuclear power plants. You've got the show Dark, look into that. And then you have Stranger Things, look into that with nuclear power. So he's working for Mr. Burns, who looks like Jacob Rothschild. If you don't know who he is, look into the Rothschild family. It's the spitting image. Homer's a bit dozy, a bit stupid, but it's kind of like the Tom Hanks character. He's very dozy and a bit stupid, but he seems to get away with a lot, and he seems to have a lot of successful things happen to him, despite his lack of intelligence. Then you've got Marge, who's the ideal housewife, who doesn't put a foot wrong, with the exception of an occasional bout of gambling. Remember the episode where she got addicted to gambling? It's because she needed some excitement in her life. Perhaps some slight flirtatious behavior with a neighbor or colleague, but she keeps a tidy house and looks after her children very well. She's a typical excellent mother. Patient as well, if you look at the stuff she has to put up with Bart and Homer. Bart is the ideal bad boy. He's seen as the cool kid, so kids watching the show want to be like him. They want to rebel, so that's a cool thing to do. And then Lisa's the ideal good girl, who is extremely intelligent and opinionated, but she constantly gets shut down for being opinionated, even though she speaks a lot of sense. And then you have Maggie, who's simply the ideal baby, quiet and intelligent. Never see Maggie crying or anything like that, just sucking on a dummy. So let's get started with some examples of Simpsons predictive programming or foreshadowing future events. So Lady Gaga, on the episode Lisa Goes Gaga, Lady Gaga is shown suspended by cables flying over the audience at a concert. Well, surprise, surprise, because at the Super Bowl halftime show she performed at, Gaga descended from the stadium's roof with suspension cables, wearing pretty much the same outfit on her episode. Coincidence? I think not. 2016 Nobel Prize winner. In a 2010 episode, Milhouse predicted the bench R. Holmstrom would win the Nobel Prize in economics, and sure enough, in 2016, Holmstrom and Oliver Hart were announced as joint winners of the prize. Coincidence? I think not. They predicted that Donald Trump would become president of the United States. Coincidence? I think not. Smartwatches. Sorry, Apple, but The Simpsons had smartwatches first. In a 1995 episode in which the show is set in the future, Lisa's husband is shown speaking to a phone on his wrist. The first smartwatch wasn't created until 2013. Coincidence? I think not. Disney owns Fox. Back in 1998, a quick scene in The Simpsons showed 20th Century Fox as a division of Walt Disney Company. And in March 2019, Disney completed its $71.3 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox's film and TV assets. Coincidence? I think not. Murder hornets and coronavirus. In a 1993 episode, a Japanese factory worker accidentally spreads the contagious Osaka flu to Springfield, and in the town, people's rush to find a cure. They accidentally knock over a van with killer bees inside. The spread of murder hornets in America has coincided with coronavirus in 2020. Coincidence? I think not. And this guy looks like Bill Gates. The Simpsons parodied entertainers Siegfried and Roy in a 1993 episode called Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. During the episode, the magicians are viciously mauled by a trained white tiger while performing in a casino. In 2003, Roy Horn of Siegfried and Roy was attacked during a live performance by Montecore, one of their white tigers. He lived but sustained severe injuries in the attack. Coincidence? I think not. In 1994, lunch lady Doris used assorted horse parts to make lunch for students at Springfield Elementary. 9 years later, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland found horse DNA in over 1/3 of beef burger samples from supermarkets and ready meals, and pig in 85% of them. Coincidence? I think not. School bullies Kearney and Dolph take a memo to beat up Martin on a Newton device in an episode of The Simpsons that aired in 1994. The memo gets quickly translated to eat up Martha, an early foreshadowing of autocorrect frustrations. Coincidence? I think not. Some people maintain that The Simpsons predicted the 2014 outbreak of Ebola 17 years before it happened. In a scene from the episode Lisa's Sacks, Marge suggests a sick Bart read a book titled Curious George and the Ebola Virus. The virus wasn't particularly widespread in the 1990s, but years later, it was top of the news agenda. Coincidence? I think not. Curious George and the Ebola virus. In one of the biggest upsets of the 2018 Winter Olympics, the US curling team won gold over the favourite Sweden. This historical win was predicted in a 2010 episode of The Simpsons called Boy Meets Curl. In the episode, Marge and Homer Simpson compete in curling at the Vancouver Olympics and beat Sweden. In real life, the US's men Olympic curling team won a gold medal after defeating Sweden, even though they were behind, which is exactly how it played out on The Simpsons. The victory is the second curling medal ever for the United States, not including Marge and Homer's, of course. Coincidence? I think not. Super Bowl predictions. They predicted the outcome and the winners of the 1992, 1993, and 1994 Super Bowl. Okay? Predicted the NFL champions 3 years in a row. And yes, all three were just lucky guesses, according to Al Jean, one of the riders. Coincidence? I think not. Look at that. The Patriots beating the Falcons 34-28. In 2008, The Simpsons showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the US general election, but a faulty machine changed his vote. 4 years later, a voting machine in Pennsylvania had to be removed after it kept changing people's votes for Barack Obama to ones for his Republican rival, Mitt Romney. Coincidence? I think not. The city of New York versus Homer Simpson, a moment alludes to the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City, and not even Al Jean, producer, could explain it. This is what he said. There is a frame where there's a brochure that says New York at $9 a day, and behind the 9 are the Twin Towers. It looks like 9/11. That one is completely bizarre. Strange thing, he says. Coincidence? I think not. So there you have it. The Simpsons foreshadow future events. Okay? They can predict outcomes of Super Bowls because sports are scripted. They can predict outcomes in the Olympics, once again, because sports are scripted. They can predict who's going to perform at Super Bowls and what they're going to wear, and that they're going to descend from the stadium's roof, because it's all predetermined. They can predict these Nobel Prize winners. And I've said multiple times, the people who win these Nobel Prize winners are sick human beings. It's an award for their evil. They can predict who's going to be future presidents. Again, because presidents are selected, not elected. Your vote doesn't mean anything. They can predict future technology because they have this technology decades in advance before us. They just sell it to the public years later. So for those people who said during the moon landing that Photoshop didn't exist back then, get a grip. Yes, it did. It just wasn't sold to the public. They predict future viruses. Again, because a lot of them are man-made. This can predict what's going to be inside meat. In this case, it was assorted horse parts. So You can keep believing that we're living in a world full of coincidences, or you can start accepting we're living in a matrix where we're getting controlled by the Jesuit order and the Freemasons. And if we don't wake up to the fact that this is happening, I'm telling you, in the next 6 to 8 months, they're going to control everything. And laugh at me as much as you want. Laugh at this video and say it's all coincidental, what you're talking about. But again, another example here of how we are being manipulated and mocked by the global elite.